Nep could feel the reverberations through her suit as the cutting laser lanced out with a crimson beam towards the derelict hulk beneath her magnetized boots. Her scrapper suit was a makeshift patchwork of scavenged components, haphazardly sealed and equipped with a rudimentary field generator. It wasn't much, but it was enough to survive for several hours at a time, floating in space among the hulks of Iteru's vast shipbreaking yards. Nep's diminutive form was perched atop the slowly spinning hulk as the glare of the red dwarf star Nihilus rose above the horizon. The star was close, too close for comfort this time of year. Nep pulled down her visor to afford her eyes a modicum of protection as she monitored the rapidly rising temperature in her sight-augmented HUD. She chastised herself for leaving this endeavor far too late in the season. Most spaceborne operations within the Iteru Trojan asteroid cluster had shut down for the perigee, when the cluster's orbit around Nihilus reached its closest approach. While Nihilus was a red dwarf star and comparatively stable, the latent radiation and heat of being so close rendered open space within the cluster a particularly uninhabitable domain. Yet, Nep could not stop. Not while she was so close to her prize. For the best part of the last month, she had scoured the now skeletonized carcass of a Grant Hegemony attack cruiser, poking and prodding at the ship's broken hull and defiled innards to uncover its hidden secrets. There was little left of value, the ship's bulk well and truly picked over by the scrapper carrion that worked the yard. But she knew there was something that had been missed, something of particular value to those in the know. A trio of Hegemony encrypted transponder devices. While the exact locations of the transponder devices had been a closely guarded military secret, a well-placed bribe to a former Hegemony officer on the dwarf planet of Denos and some intricate and surgical disassembly of select hull plates had revealed the most imperceptible signals of the inactive transponders. She had already secured 2 of the package-sized devices, stowing them in her backpack and keeping them on her at all times. And then she found the third. As a particularly stubborn hull plate was removed, she spotted the spherical casing that protected the transponder. She dropped her cutting laser lance, allowing it to float tethered to her hip, and leaned down. She unscrewed the casing to reveal the small electronic gyroscope assembly of the encrypted transponder, immediately grabbing it, stowing it in her bag. She allowed herself to smile. That was 100K of compact credits right there. But not sooner than she had taken possession of the final 3 transponders than a heavy laser rifle blast seared through space and struck the ship beside her.
"Give up the goods, Nep, or you'll die out here in the black,"
a gravelly toned voice threatened over her personal comm. Nep gritted her teeth. It was a rival. Dexter. There was no chance she was just going to give up her prize. Nep instinctually released her magnetic boots and allowed the force of the explosion to propel her into space away from the Hulk. Activating small microjets in her boots, she arced around the ship, staying close to the hull and using its bulk as cover, as more volleys were launched in her direction. Within moments, she had disappeared into the black shadow of the slowly spinning ship, only for a pair of lights, like a set of illuminated eyes, to break the darkness. And then a small craft, no more than twice as big as Nep herself, accelerated away from the ship. Nep cruised in her personal astrojet craft, itself a mangled contraption of discarded parts. But what it lacked in aesthetics, it made up for in sheer speed. Accelerating rapidly away from the derelict Hegemony cruiser, her precious packages now securely stowed, she peered down at a small radar screen. 3 perusers, all in similarly personal craft, were making chase. She chastised herself for not being more present, for letting the excitement of finding the third of the transponders distract her from the inherent dangers of the yard. But she wasn't done for yet. Despite her astrojet's acceleration, her 3 pursuers were closing in. More shots were fired, a mix of concussive projectiles and lasers. Yet Nep dodged them with ease, swerving and arcing around wrecks and hulks with a fluid ease born from a lifetime spent in space. She raced away from the nearby Osiris spaceport that functioned as the base for the sector and deeper into the yard in the hope of losing her pursuers. Out here, in amongst the wrecks, there were few rules and even fewer that were enforced. It did not help that salvage could not be officially claimed until you were on board the station. Until then, Nep's prize was fair game. Nep continued to accelerate until she was holding the other astrojets at bay, but she knew there was only one way to really lose them. She moved towards one of the massive hulks, the Apis, an early mass colony ship that was synonymous with the Yard and the Fall's Edge. Several miles in length, the Apis had been one of the first ships to arrive in the Nihilus system 2 centuries earlier. Even now, its deconstructed remains were so large that it would undoubtedly survive the perigee and remain within the cluster, unlike much of the Yard's current derelicts that would be soon pulled away from the Lagrange point and plunge into the star. Nep continued to swoop and swerve towards the Apis, offering no clean target for Dexter and his partners. As she approached the ship, she did not slow and plunged straight into the interior. Following her instincts, she turned left sharply before weaving through a maze of girders, gantries, and support. Her pursuers instead slowed significantly as they approached the hulk, believing that Nep had gone into hiding inside the Apis with the hope of waiting them out. But as soon as they inched into the cavernous interior of the hollowed-out colonial relic to flush out their quarry, Nep's astrojet came shooting out of the stern of the ship, accelerating rapidly in a straight shot towards the Osiris Station.
Later, boys.
Nep laughed over the comms as she cruised away from the Apis like a bullet from a gun. Dexter and his crew swore at her and argued to each other, much to Nep's delight. They went to turn and make chase, but they had lost too much momentum and there were no catching Nep's astrojet. Within minutes, Nep was docking in one of Osiris Station's small hangars, bringing her astrojet to rest in the artificial gravity before opening the top of the craft and climbing out, bag in hand. There, waiting for her, was a well-dressed man named Stefan, a business owner and industrialist of note on Danis and an avid collector of interesting artifacts. Or so he told everyone. But Nep knew the truth, that Stefan and his colleagues would find a trio of encrypted hegemony transponders particularly useful for the mission. She walked over to him and presented the backpack with a smile and an expectant handout. He opened the bag and returned her smile gleefully, immediately handing over a credit disc before passing the bag over to what looked like a Free Flagger crew member who hurried out of the hangar. The man's face beamed.
"Thank you, Scrapper. You may have turned the tide of the war,